Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Fatmah. I'm a student in Swadaya Gunung Jati University. I'm majoring in English Education Department. I'm from 1B class, and here I want to present my result for Introduction to Literature final test. And here there are 3 topics, and the first topic is about poetry. So here I will present about a poem from Emily Dickinson. It is Hope. I will read the poem first. Hope. Hope is a stubble golden. He feeds upon the fair, and yet inspected closely. What abstinence is there? He is the helicon table that never sits but one, and whatsoever is consumed, the same amounts remain. Next, I will tell a short biography of Emily Dickinson. Her birth name is Emily Dickinson. She born in December 10, 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts, United States. Her education is she studies in Amherst Academy from 1840 until 1847. And in Mount Holyoke College. Her nationality is American. Her occupation is poet, and her parents' name is Edward Dickinson and Emily Norcross Dickinson. Her alma mater is Mount Holyoke Female Seminary, and notable awards. Emily Dickinson won no literary awards during her lifetime. And children, she have 3 children. It is Ned, Martha, and Thomas Gilbert. And some of her notable works there are I Taste a Liquor Never Brewed, Success Counted Sweetest, Wild Nights, I Felt a Fundrill in My Brain, and Hope is the Thing with Feathers, and last, A Bird Come Down the Walk. The genre of her works is classical, and some of her books, the complete poems, and there are 3 seasons, and another one is Because I Could Not Stop for Death. And her period is from 1858 until 1865. She died on May 15, 1886 in Amherst, Massachusetts, United States, because of a bright disease and its duration as 2.5 years. The next point is I will tell about the analysis of the poems. So here in the poem, the roles of consumer shift from first stanza to the second. In the first one, hope feeds on the fair. That is to say, those foolish enough to believe in hope's promise. We are consumed by hope. Here, the word feeds works in 2 ways, and it all hangs on that preposition. We are suffering an illusion. Hope does not consume us, rather hope feeds us, not feeds on us. And here hope gives us food at the helicon table. It is paradise to be nourished by hope, even though at times it can feel like torture. When hope allows us to want to or expect things that are not realized, it may seem as though hope is tearing at our entrails with the sharp teeth of a predator. So we may blame hope for this agony, but in the end, here said, we are sustained by hope. And further, that sustenance is endless. No matter how much hope we use up, there is always more where that comes from. And here Emily acknowledged the double-edged sword here. Here we can see that hope can destroy and creates. Hard to have a peaceful relationship with hope when disappointment always lurking in the periphery of hope's influence. The next topic is about prose, and here I review a novel of Oliver Twist, written by Charles Dickens. And first I will tell a short biography of Charles Dickens. His birth name is Charles John Hupham Dickens. He born on February 7, 1812 in Portsmouth on the southern coast of England. Charles Dickens was an English writer and social critic. His father, named John Dickens, was a naval clerk who dreamed of becoming rich, and his mother, named Elizabeth Barrow, aspired to be a teacher and school director. But the family's financial situation had grown worse because John Dickens used to spend money dangerously beyond the family means. And for Charles Dickens' education, he left school to work in a factory after his father's imprisonment. But despite his lack of formal education, he edited a weekly journal for 20 years. He wrote 15 novels and 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and non-fiction articles. He lectured and performed extensively, and he was an indefatigable letter writer, and he campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. His nationality is Britannia, and his wife's name is Catherine Thompson Hogarth Dickens. He has 10 children. And the list of his works, first there are Oliver Twist, and then Charisma Coral, The Life and Adventure of Nicholas Nickleby, The Old Christie Shop, Burned by Rudge, David Copperfield, The Life and Adventures of Martin Chuzzlewit, A Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectation, Bleak House, Hard Time, Little Dorrit, and Our Mutual Friend. Charles Dickens died on 9 June 1870 because of a stroke. He was buried in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. And next I will tell a summary of Oliver Twist's novel. So this novel tells about the life of a boy named Oliver Twist, who was born in a remote area on the outskirts of England in 1830, and unfortunately his mother is died after she gave birth to Oliver, and then Oliver became an orphan. Oliver lived in a workhouse, was run by Mrs. Mann, and when he turned 9, the head of the workhouse, Mr. Bumble, visited Mrs. Mann to move Oliver back to the house Oliver was born into. And in that house, orphans are treated so badly so that they suffer and strive. One day a new boy came. He was not used to being hungry. And then he he threatened the children who were there that if he didn't get more food, he would eat one of them. Oliver was picked to get more foods for that boy, but when Oliver asked for more food, he was scolded and considered to be insulted, and because of his action, Oliver is locked in his room, and they plan to expel or move Oliver again by offering £5 to anyone who will bring Oliver from parish. And then one day, a man come to the workhouse. He is a chimney sweep named Gamfield. He want to take Oliver, and he offer £3 to take Oliver, but Mr. Limkins didn't give Oliver to Mr. Gamfield. And the next day, another person came again, named Mr. Sowerberry. He want to take Oliver to work for his family and make coffins, but unfortunately, here in the Sowerberry family house, Oliver was mistreated. He is given dog's foods. He is forced to work day and night. And the children of Sowerberry family also insult Oliver and Oliver's dead mother. So Oliver becomes angry and goes on a rampage trying to murder them. But he is stopped and ordered to remain in his room. But in the next morning, Oliver tried to escape from their house, and he decided to head to London. After 7 days trying to survive to live alone in London, Oliver meets a boy who was about his own age. The boy named Jack Dawkins. He invites Oliver to live somewhere he knows for free, because he know Oliver didn't have money. And Oliver accepted and followed Jack to where he intended. And Oliver is brought to someone named Fagin. Fagin is the leader of a group of thieves, and the place where Oliver is taken is actually a place for a group of thieves. But Oliver didn't know this because Fagin lied to Oliver. He say they get money by cleaning handkerchiefs and making pocket books. And also, without Oliver realize it, Fagin trains Oliver to steal by pretending to say to Oliver that they are going to play a game. However, after a week, Oliver finally realized what place is this and realized that the game is not just a silly game. And one day, Oliver was told to watch his friend steal from a man in a bookstore, but the man realized that there is something was wrong. And when he looked around and found Oliver running and screaming, he thought Oliver stole, but actually it is his two friends. And when they run, his friends success to escape themselves, but Oliver was caught. But the man who was the victim of the thief did not want to sue Oliver because he felt pity for Oliver, who was very young, and instead he took Oliver to his house. But Fagin, who knows that Oliver was caught and taken, does not accept it, and he was trying to find Oliver. Fagin's men managed to find Oliver and force Oliver back to the base. And later, when they success to bring back Oliver to the base, Oliver was forced to do robbery again with the two of thieves, but the robbery turned out to be failed at the end. Sykes ran away and left injured Oliver to save himself. And from this incident, there was a new fact where it turned out that the house Oliver wanted to steal was the house of Miley and Rose, her adopted daughter and Oliver's aunt. Mr. Brownlow was a friend of Rose's father. Mr. Brownlow is the first victim of the robbery. And there is someone named Monk. He is Oliver's stepbrother who is trying to get rid of Oliver by paying Fagin to make Oliver a thief. And the two ladies decided to help Oliver, and they take care of him after the injury and also prevent Oliver from going to the court again. Actually, Rose was cooperating with Mr. Brownlow, and they revealed Monks and everything about him, and in the end, Monks had to promise that he would not search for Oliver anymore, and Brownlow promised not to turn him in. The police chased Sykes, and he died at the end while Fagin and his gang were arrested. The authorities decided to hang Fagin. Mr. Bumble stopped being the manager of the orphanage and became a member of it when he ended up homeless. And Oliver was adopted by Mr. Brownlow, and he lived a happy and honest life. Character and characteristic in Oliver Twist novel. First, Oliver Twist. He is the eponymous protagonist who born an orphan, attains a better life through purity of character and good fortune. Oliver is innocent, a gentle child with a sweet expression. And Fagin is the manipulative leader of a ring of child thieves. Jack Dawkins, also known as the Artful Dodger, is the most adaptive in Fagin the group. And next, Mr. Brownlow. He is the gentleman who takes Oliver in and help attain justice for Oliver and Nancy. And Rose Miley is the thoughtful woman who cares for Oliver after the botched robbery. She turns out to be Oliver's aunt. Monk is Oliver's stepbrother. He is a cunning person. And Mr. Bumble, he is a money-hungry person. This is what I see. Okay, so that's it for prose. And the next point is drama. The drama that I review here is Sorry, Wrong Number. This is just a voice drama. And first I will tell the summary of the drama. Sorry, Wrong Number tells a story of Mrs. Albert Stevenson, an invalid woman confined to her bed, who become increasingly frantic as the story progresses. The drama begins with Mrs. Stevenson attempting to call her husband, who is working late, and frustrated with the busy signal, she seeks the help of the operator who connects her to what she assumes is her husband's office phone. But instead of hearing her husband's familiar voice, she listened to a conversation where two men are plotting a murder. The victim is a woman, home alone, who lives near a bridge. The men plan for the attack to take place just as the train crosses the bridge, so the sound will mask any scream from the victim. Horrified by what she hears, Mrs. Stevenson called the operator to demand that she trace the source of this call. The operator explained that only the police can push through a request like that, and begins 20 minutes of calls to the police, telephone operators, and even to the phone companies. Chief operator asked Mrs. Stevenson attempt to alert someone to the gravity of the situation. None of the people she talks to will acknowledge that she is in any danger. Mrs. Stevenson has been confined to her bed for 12 years with anxiety issue. No one on the phone has the answer she is seeking, and her anxiety mounts, building suspense that her health may be at risk. The drama culminates in a scene where Mrs. Stevenson becomes certain that she is the target of the murder. After all, she lives near a train that crosses a bridge, and when she hears that her husband has left town to on a business, she knows that she will be at home alone at the decided time for the attack. In the final minute, she hears an intruder listening on the downstairs phone, and then she picks out footsteps coming up the stairs. She hastily calls the police for help, but just before they answer the phone, her terrified screams let us know that she has been caught by the killer. The drama ends when the police ask about the nature of the caller emergency. The killer picks up the phone, explains that he is fine, and say that he never meant to dial the police. He apologized for dialing a wrong number and hang up. So that's it, the end of this drama. Next, I will answer some questions. The first one is, where does Mr. Stevenson suddenly go away to on a business trip? He goes to Boston for a business trip. And the second question, what does Mrs. Stevenson overhear on the phone when trying to contact her husband? She hears a conversation between two men about a murder plot. And the next one, in what city does the play take place? This is in New York. The last one, what is the primary motivation for Mrs. Stevenson's killer? They kill her because of her illness and constant care it requires, and because of she is very fussy. Okay, so that's all for my final test for Introduction to Literature. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.